уважаемые участники нашего форума. На первой сессии мы рассмотрели обзор нашего национального законодательства в области цифровизации. Вторая сессия у нас будет посвящена международному опыту внедрения цифровизации. И слово для модерирования предоставляю своей коллеге по модераторству. Очень рад вас так назвать сегодня.
Спасибо.
Да, госпожа Корикян.
Большое спасибо, Александр Яковлевич. С вашего позволения я перейду на английский. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a distinguished panel of experts who are dealing with the energy sector digitalization from different aspects for years. I hope that discussions today on this panel on the experience they have in various international settings in their own countries and the case studies that will be presented today to your attention will provide with some insights and hands-on experience about the challenges and also opportunities that digitalization of energy sector brings. So we have three distinguished speakers today at the panel. Mr. Gianluca Misuraka, who is the founding director of the Master on Artificial Intelligence in Public Services, and he's also vice president of Inspiring Futures on Technology and Diplomacy. The second speaker is Bas Kramer, business director, digital grid operations and cybersecurity at the DNV Energy Systems. And the third speaker is Mr. Klaas Holmes, managing director of the BAS BV company. All of them have different aspects of the energy sector digitalization to share with. What's the panel discussion?
Well, thank you, Arpine. And so in practice, I will set the stage for the colleagues then to go deeper into the analysis. But let me start by thanking the minister and the government of Kazakhstan for the invitation, and of course the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, where I've had the pleasure to work with many years ago, and then I still have many friends. In fact, also last night I got some messages from Vincenzo Acquaro that you may know, that also he was regretting not to be here with us today, and and also for me it's a pleasure because it's the first time I actually come to Kazakhstan, despite when I was teaching at the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne. I also had several students from Kazakhstan, some also grown up in their career at the highest level, and they invited me many times, but for various reasons I couldn't come. So very pleased to be here and see also the progresses, and actually from this morning presentations I learned a lot, and actually I was telling Arpine, well, I would like to talk about many things, because indeed on my let's say day-to-day work since I left the European Commission when I was working on the Joint Research Center, especially on the future of digital governance in the European Union and artificial intelligence in particular. I'm leading this program called AI for Gov, so the artificial intelligence for government. Actually, at the end of the day, I didn't get my last presentation, but okay, it's fine. So, and also I'm indeed the founder and vice president on technology diplomacy of Inspiring Future. So, today is indeed yeah, it's okay. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change much. So, and basically, I have I mean, today we are talking about the future of energy. So this is very much in line with my specific interest. And also, let me thank, as this is always done at the end, the interpreters, because I was able to follow everything, because they are doing an excellent job in the Russian to English translation. And indeed, many of the issues that you discussed already and are at the core, or maybe of the debate we will have later today in the Q&A and in the roundtable tomorrow, are fundamental. So cybersecurity, digital skills, and of course data governance and data sharing. So, but my task now today is to, as I say, to set the stage. and it's a pleasure to have the minister joining and listening, because I was asked by the colleagues of UNDESA indeed to prepare let's say a background paper and looking at specific cases that could be inspirational indeed for your transition, and clearly I mean, if we look at the background and this event and all the presentations before show this very clearly, that there is a worldwide, a fermentous, I would say, an important change about the way digital technology have been adopted and are being adopted in many sectors, and in particular in the energy, to address exactly the challenges of sustainability, efficiency, and security. And clearly for Kazakhstan, this would be an important opportunity to modernize the energy systems, to also reduce the reliance on fossil fuels, and really unlock the potential for the use of renewable energy resources. So this is the background, and that's why I was pleased also to see the progresses, because I was discussing indeed with Vincenzo and Arpine already a few years ago about the project you have embarked. So clearly, in your case, the digital energy platform initiative, that is a priority areas of focus, and is very important to address the challenges that you have already identified. So I read with pleasure the vision that you have, the report that has been already prepared to analyze the current situation, and how to address the challenges, the weakness that you, as many other countries, have in this area. So the aging infrastructure, the inefficiencies in the energy distribution system, the fragmentation of the data systems. That's why the need of data governance and cybersecurity is so important, and the need to integrate renewable energy sources, especially if we want to, enter and embrace the complexity that the future has, brings with it. So the objectives on my activity or my work was to support the work of the colleagues and your work in better understanding and also developing policy experimentation and regulatory sandboxes on frontier technology. So we will look specifically at AI and blockchain, but clearly data is what feed these systems. So we will talk a lot about data sharing, but also Internet of Things and other technologies that are clearly part of the successful transition of in the energy sector. And then I started looking at a few cases. I will present some very briefly, and the idea is then to gather your input to support the colleagues in drafting some recommendations that could be actionable for you in the near future. So the approach was to review the state of the art. I mean, this is a complex area that is not easy also to gather information because, of course, in many cases, as already the previous presentation showed, we are talking about critical infrastructure, issues related also to defense and national security. But clearly, the idea is to make sure that we can learn from other cases of success around the world. But then, you have to do your own homework and make sure that you can develop your own, let's say, way towards the future. And so I understand also the background paper will be then circulated once available, once, let's say, finalized, and clearly the discussion with you, with the experts, will be fundamental. Now, the rationale is that clearly these technologies are potentially a real transformational lever for many areas in the public sector, but in particular for the energy sector, because if you look in particular at the role of artificial intelligence, this can help optimizing the energy systems, can help predict and mitigate failures on the systems, on the equipment, and also enable secure and efficient data sharing among the stakeholders. So the presentation by Vasilis is a clear example how this must be well thought in order to have this data governance framework implemented and successful. But also, very importantly, and this is a part of your vision, but as many countries in the world are looking at this exactly to fight the climate change and ensure that we have a transition towards renewable energy. In the EU, for example, but I won't talk about that, there has been a lot of effort on the so-called Green Deal, but also on the digital and green transition as a twin transition. And now actually the new commission that has been just voted and is in charge as of this week is focusing on what we call in certain circles the triple transition. So it's not only, let's say, energy and digital, but also social transition that is required to make sure that this works. Now, the focus of the analysis then, and you will see in the case studies that I will briefly introduce, is on the smart metering systems that I'm sure you are all aware, and then the colleagues will enter with much more details and knowledge. And then the grid optimization using digital twins, that is something that I know is a bit like many of these technologies. Everybody's talking about, but nobody's really doing it properly. And then how to secure energy data sharing. That is a specific issue that, especially in the current period, is so important. And the decentralizations of the energy markets, that is also very much linked to what, for instance, in the EU, we refer to the technology sovereignty. They need to have a strategic autonomy also of our systems to not be dependent from other markets too much. Now, if we yes.
Small pause. The technical colleagues were able to actually update your presentation. Okay. If you want, they can switch it.
Okay.
Yeah? Вы можете новую презентацию включить, обновленную?
Okay, but there was not much changes. More on the. I tried to update also the logos of the organizations and the titles. So, but basically yeah. So let me go to the case studies, because also and good to see that here there are no problem of interoperability. So, because this is one of the key words that has not yet been emphasized, but is fundamental to all what we will see. I mean, I won't focus into that, but for example, in the European Union, we also have just passed a law, a regulation at the EU level called Interoperable Europe Act, that actually has the objective to make sure that in all sectors, including in the energy sector, there is the possibility to interoperate across border and across government. And also just last week, I guess the European Parliament passed the Cyber Resilience Act, that is also a very important regulation in the area of cybersecurity, so to make sure that we have an enhanced cyber security framework at the EU level. Now, the case studies that I identified and I hope would be useful for further deliberation of this workshop and your work are mainly from the EU, and then I also looked at two, let's say, big countries that clearly are also making a lot of effort in this, so India and China. But in particular, I will focus on Denmark, Italy, Norway, and the UK that have specific initiative that may be of inspiration. And as I say, then the colleagues, I believe they can build on, especially on the first two that look at the smart metering initiatives. So the first one, in fact, is about Denmark, and Denmark, is a small country in the north of Europe, as you know, but it has the highest share of wind electricity among the countries part of the International Energy Agency, and they have been actually working very much on becoming a world-leading country in renewable energy systems, especially because they've been able to link to through a quite wide Internet of Things Linux-enabled sensor systems, and also using AI-driven forecasting tools to balance the wind energy variability and maintain grid stability. So basically, they also managed to move from 75% to 53% their reliance on fossil fuels in a period of 10 years. So well below the average that we have at the international levels, that is almost 80%. So this is very promising. So things can be done. Okay, now it's a different context, but clearly your, let's say, vision about the future could be inspired also by this successful policy initiative. Here we can see how this has been actually, the mix of energy has changed in supply side in Denmark since the beginning of the century, and we see that it's clearly the oil and the coal they went much down, as well as gas, and instead there is an increased use of wind, solar, so renewable energies, and biofuels and waste. Now, if we look at this from a more technical perspective, clearly they've been able to develop an extensive smart meter system that enable exactly the real-time monitoring of the consumption of energy and their production, so that the distribution system operators actually can control and also predict somehow the flows, also including the consumers in the process, so they become prosumers. That this is the magical word, no? That everybody wants to have prosumers, or people that actually feed the excess of electricity and using, for instance, renewable energies like solar energies that go back into the grid. And then, of course, they also reduce reliance on centralized power plants and enhance the integration of these renewable sources through optimized distributed energy resources. And as I said, maybe we can go then more into details. And another example, of course, being Italian, I'm quite proud of, because they were a bit of the early adopters. We didn't really believe at the beginning it could have happened, but actually now that after 25 years living abroad, I came back to Italy, to Rome, I actually see that this is one of the things that works. And there's the Enel, the national company that actually deployed a large-scale system for smart metering already starting in 2001. And then with the second generation of smart meters, they actually incorporated also in this case a bidirectional communication channel, also making sure that not only the utility operators but also the customers, the citizens, can actually control the production and the consumption. And here instead, in fact, this has been the kind of empowerment that this can allow of citizens, of consumers, making sure that they can be balancing the period of peak with through also dynamic pricing policies and flexibility programs. And of course, these make sure that consumers, citizens, can participate actively in the market, and these has had some impact in terms of automation. I'm sure colleagues later will discuss about this more in depth. They need to, and in Italy at least, it get to eliminate almost fully 97% of on-site visits. These reduce operational cost and increase efficiency, and also has been introducing AI-driven insights, exactly increasing by over 10% the peak electricity demand reduction during critical periods. And as I said, also the tariff systems have been benefiting of this very much. Now, another case that I think is very interesting for you also because of the weather condition, maybe it's closer to Kazakhstan, is what Norway has done in terms of predictive security, and is now a kind of leader in this area. And they also had the same similar, let's say, vision of moving away from the reliance, massive reliance on oil and fossil fuels. And they basically using sensors in the transformers actually, and also in various parts parts of the systems. And again, colleagues, I'm sure, will go much more in depth and see how the distribution system works, allow to increase the capacity to analyze the data, also through AI-powered algorithms, and so identifying different partners that can also help intervene for maintenance in case of critical failures and so forth. So this is done through the implementation of these digital substations. And again, I won't go into details, but basically they're AI-based predictive maintenance systems used artificial intelligence, also the operational efficiency that is also here quite consistent by 20 to 25% of their improvements. Now, another case that is interesting also because of the specific focus of the project. That is to build regulatory sandboxes is what has been experimented in the UK, where the regulator, Ofgem, and I understand from the minister that you also have the role of regulator for the country. So it's very important that there is the possibility to test and experiment how potential changes quite significant could have impact on the consumers, on the distributor, and all the value chain. And clearly, the sandbox initiative on the set by Ofgem was facilitating the possibility for different companies to test new technologies and business model in a controlled environment. We were joking before about the sandbox. Now, sandbox is the new buzzword, so everybody is using it when we don't know exactly what could be the consequences, positive or negative. So then we put like children in playing in a controlled sand environment. And I think this is very important for areas like energy, where really we could have potential negative consequences if we don't do the things well. And so basically here there is an interesting example. Of course, it's important to say that the sandbox is not solving all the problems. It's not magic. It's like AI, It's not the magic stick, but basically does support to the regulator or the government department also to understand what kind of policy to implement, to design and implement, but of course is not more than that. So it's important also to understand that as any sandbox has is let's say limitations, but clearly it's important that this is done and possibly, let's say, set as a first step of, maybe a piloting initiative and then a possible institutionalization and mainstream development and deployment of specific systems. Now, in this case, they tested in particular technologies such as the vehicle-to-grid systems, but also blockchain platforms. And we will see also another important topic in this area is the blockchain, the distributed ledger systems that are also being now tested in different countries. And the idea is here to support through a flexible regulatory system possible derogations also to address regulatory barriers while at the same time can ensure consumer protection. And clearly it's very important to have this done in a collaborative way with all the stakeholders being involved. So talking about blockchain, and since the focus was mainly on AI, but also on other frontier technologies, I found a very interesting case that it's coming from Australia, where they have actually the largest, let's say, system that is self-generated by consumers, by prosumers, let's say. And in particular, there's a company, Power Ledger, there that actually facilitate the use of renewable energy energies for residential units, and developed a specific model for making sure that this can be put back to the system in a certain way, using exactly blockchain to track the transaction in a secure way. So this is an interesting case because I mean, distributed ledger technologies are becoming more and more important in this, so not just for Bitcoin, but actually to make sure that, you know, there is a stamp for critical information like that is used in the energy sector. So here is how it works. Always in theory, then of course we have to go to see in practice. But clearly how these technologies underpin the innovative energy market system. So basically all citizens, all households, all local communities generate a surplus of solar energy, and they can trade it through these systems. And these, of course, reduce substantially the dependence on possible centralized systems that in a large country like Australia and like Kazakhstan, of course, is one of the main critical factors to be addressed. The results have been achieved by this project is to make sure that this peer-to-peer trading can allow the citizens, the prosumers, to trade this surplus of renewable energy locally. And there are, of course, dynamic pricing that are also, let's say, enabled by this real-time monitoring of the production and consumption of energy. And clearly this allows for a real decentralization of the systems across the country with quite substantial economic benefits for the local communities themselves. So as I said, another example that I looked into is India. That is also very interesting because it's a large country like yours, and clearly they've also been struggling to make sure that there is a policy to integrate renewable energy into the electricity grid in particular. And they also started using quite significantly AI-powered systems, and they actually already had some interesting results as they moved from, from 28% of their renewable energy share, and they aim to achieve to 54% by 2030, and even 80% by 2040. And let's see if the recent deals at the Baku COP also allows for facilitate for this transition. And what they do here is they also use satellite weather data integrated with AI systems that also is improving the ability of the government and at different levels to predict solar and wind energy generation, and also enabling a better grid management and possibly reducing the reliance on fossil fuels. And again, okay, I won't go into details of this, maybe I skip it, but basically the results achieved are that these, with the use of these forecasting tools based on artificial intelligence, they can analyze the different data sets and enhance this integration and the grid stability. And basically they have then the market-based economic dispatch systems that allows for optimizing the energy trading, and also through using a supervisory control and data assessment systems, they can also facilitate the predictive maintenance and the grid reliability. And this also, of course, has important implication in terms of lowering the costs of the systems. And coming to China, one of your neighbors, actually this is a case that, of course, we have just started looking at, as it is very complex but very interesting, as it is done directly by the State Grid Corporation of China, and that is one of the, of course, the biggest grid-focused utilities, as it covers over 80% of the entire Chinese energy grid. And their vision is actually to integrate different energy sources to make sure that there is this transition to a more, let's say, green energy system. In particular, we can see this in the last slide here, is they use ultra-high voltage technologies that enable the transmission of electricity long distance with quite secured systems, and integrating different technologies into their systems of production and consumption analysis, and also based on fiber optic cables to ensure also high-speed data exchange across the grid, supporting also in this way tendentially the two-way communication system that is essential for an advanced grid management system. So here we took this from a report that we got from the government, that basically shows how this is going to be deployed across the country. So it's quite interesting, as it should ensure this reliability all over the country. So to conclude and to stay within my allocated time, I identified 5 key takeaways that, of course, are here for discussion. But clearly, we can see that it is essential nowadays to deploy AI-enabled smart metering systems that could allow consumers to be actually become prosumers and enhance then the demand-side management, and also use virtual models like digital twins and others to simulate and optimize grid operations, especially in regions that have a high renewable penetration. And here in Kazakhstan, from what I understand, there are already some regions that have already quite a lot of exposure to solar energy, for example, and but also to IoT sensors and AI analytics. There's the possibility to really reduce substantially the operational disruptions, and so increase the lifespan of the infrastructure. And then blockchain-enabled platforms are becoming more and more important to ensure that peer-to-peer energy trading can be let's say, implemented, and this would also incentivize local renewable adoption. And finally, the sandbox, the regulatory sandbox, that is definitely a very important instrument for testing and then quickly scaling up emerging technologies, so making sure that there is an alignment with the national energy goals and the overall government vision. So some initial recommendations that are coming out of this first analysis is clearly the transition that countries like Kazakhstan is doing is not just a technical or economical challenge, but is more a social and political, and but is also a big opportunity to redefine the role of the country within the global landscape. Look forward for further discussion and the questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Gianluca, for for very interesting presentation, and as you said, setting the basically ground for our further discussions, and laying out different possibilities that the frontier technologies bring into digitalization. It was very interesting to see that reliance on not only on AI but also blockchain and satellite imaging, and also the cloud and data sharing, all of it, that are bringing, the technology is bringing into solving multiple challenges that the system set. I would like to encourage the audience to have the questions noted for the end of the presentations when we have the chance to do it, and then happily we give the floor to our next expert, Bas. Please, the floor is yours.
I have to push it, of course. So I start again. Thank you, Arpine. Thank you, Vice Minister. Thank you, Alexei, for organizing this and for inviting us once again to your country. For me, the first time to be here. Yeah, it works So this is me not only working for DNV, but also working 1 day a week at the University of Delft, where I used to study a long time ago. And actually, thanks to Gianluca, who recommended Professor Peter Palinsky. And then Peter Palinsky asked, Bas, can you help with Kazakhstan? So that's why we're here. And I'm sure he will regret not having had the possibility to come here. Your journey together with the United Nations started anyway with a workshop end of 2022, October 2022, when I was not able to join. Then you had a delegation come to visit Netherlands with, well, high-packed expedition of the Netherlands, including TenneT stayed in Eilat, Kima and DNV Delft, of course. After that, in the second workshop, it was Klaas who came, and now finally we could come together. At the delegation time in 2023 in May, you presented, your delegation presented that you were building this platform for the different ways of working in your energy sector, in your oil and gas, and in the public services, exactly like it was presented by Alexei already today. Talking about the digital platform and what you need to have a consistent way of working, consistent structures in all these different segments. So is it one platform or is it several platforms of structured data? And if you want to build this and evolve this, you will need a roadmap for each of them. I added now to it the rules of engagement. How do you do this? What is the objective? How do you govern this? And you've been showing already today a lot of the ways that you're handling this. Here I still say sharing data, but at the end of the presentation, maybe we will call it differently. Well, which data anyway, and how do you share it, and why do you share it, and which stakeholders are involved? Maybe that's why it's in capital letters. Probably that's the most important part. What we wrote in May 2023, the success factors, your master plan just mentioned which target, the end state in mind, converging governance, and then on the other side, the programs that you have to run and orchestrate. And then we come to the technical areas, because somehow, as technical people, we like to focus on technical stuff, but if you don't organize the people and the processes and all the stakeholders, then the technical will not work. Technically, we will always solve it, but the people have to do it. So it's nice to have grid operations, SCADA, EMS, we already talked about it, and I will talk about it more. This is about energy and the flexibility market, especially now we're introducing renewable energy. Distribution automation and smart metering, we've been talking about that, and we will talk a lot more. So let me indulge you in talking about the grid. So I will look at this data from a grid perspective and operating the grid, but with the ultimate goal, of course, is us at the bottom in our homes with our smart meters. And we have a transmission grid, a distribution grid, and then the low voltage part and all the different levels where we put electricity onto the grid. And in the past, of course, we put it only on the top with fossil fuel, pushing it down, and now we start pushing it up. And we have so many control systems running this on the transmission, on the distribution, and the energy part with the smart meters, and we're going inside our houses as well. Anyway, that will be the example we will show from the Dutch perspective. And it's all nice to know that, yeah, it needs to be cyber secure. Your transmission system operator needs to balance the system, facilitate an electricity market with more players to go, operate this whole system, and somebody has to manage the assets as well, because this is a big machine that you're running, and you're making it bigger. And there's also the portfolio managers that are producing electricity, putting electricity on the grid. So we look again at how this has evolved. So on the top you see the transmission system operator, in the bottom it is the distribution operator. But you see that from the SCADA perspective, there's a lot of new signals and systems coming in. And here SM is smart metering, the distribution automation, real-time interfaces. And already also mentioned by Gianluca, there's IoT sensors coming into the grid and measuring what performances can be gained from each component. but it's all different systems collecting data in different ways and different communication ways, all, by the way, elements for cybersecurity to be looked at. And on the bottom part, you see the aggregators. So we are in our houses and we have to manage our energy in our houses soon. If not, we should already have done that. And there's other parties going to help us. In the Netherlands, the only aggregators we see so far really are the EV charging operators. And I noticed that, we had a discussion with Damir, that there's more and more electrical cars also in Kazakhstan. Many Chinese built, I understood, the same as in the Netherlands. But how do you deal with this, as an example? But now look from the grid, from the bottom up, where we live. So this box turns into a house. This is our domiciles. And in our house, we use electricity, we use maybe gas. In Netherlands, we are supposed to use green gas. We have sometimes hot water. You mentioned already you have hot water systems. Water is coming in, and then we're cooling, heating our houses. I'm told I have to switch to a heat pump. We have our washing machine, freezer, EV charger, battery systems, all the energy. And now comes in my house IT as a separate box. And I'll explain to you why that is a separate box, but then the end. And there's stuff going out, maybe we have to measure that too. Anyway, we're measuring the solar that we're exporting already to the grid, and maybe from the battery, and maybe also from a water point of view and the waste. Now you have to look at this as street level. So we see in the Netherlands a lot of houses with a lot of solar panels already. Somehow from the laggards we are now the front houses with solar panels. And on a sunny and a windy day, we have so much renewable energy that our normal systems can be shut down. Well, you cannot shut them down easily, so we have to export, and it's impacting the prices on the market. So we get negative electricity prices, also new. But you look at the street, you look at your neighborhood, you look at actually from a distribution transformer point of view, from a city with different regions. And here you see a DSO, a distribution system operator, because the network operator has to become system operator with advanced distribution management, managing the distributed energy resources. Maybe they have to create an energy platform for the different players. Maybe they have to introduce low voltage grid control and power management, and in any case, demand response, or anyway, the possibility to shift demand, because we cannot build our grid, and we don't want to build our grid to support everything all the time. And then there's the TSO already doing the market platform and already doing the generation control overall and the interaction with the DSO. So there's energy vendors and there will be new aggregators. But to in your house, we need a home energy system, a gateway with metering and demand response or demand side management. And that is to control the energy in your house. Now, this is my private element. Why should my electricity company look into my house? But I can respond. Let's first go back to there's a flexibility market now on the transmission level, but there will be a flexibility market in the distribution level, all the way to low voltage. And now this, you see, my house suddenly has become load centers. If we have flexibility pricing and the time of use, there may be moments that our net grid in the street is congested. I do not want to use electricity at that time because the price will go up. I want to have an automation system in my house that will shut down my use of electricity. It should not shut down my house IT because that's the nerve center now for my home automation. But I have to respond, or I would like to respond, otherwise it can be quite costly, to the price levels of the electricity at given times. And this is just Kazakhstan. 7.5, almost 8 million households and industries. So we have to orchestrate that. And it's not something I go sit at home and wonder when shall I switch what off. No, I hope somebody will do that automatically and organize that for me. But I have to have a system to do that. Already mentioned today, SIM, Common Information Model. So the data needs to be structured that other people can use it easily based on a standard. SIM outside, SIM inside. It's the SIM exchange. And it's also the SIM based on the data that you're using inside. I cannot expect from every household in the Netherlands to go and buy or install a cybersecure system by themselves. These people are ignorant. I know a little bit more, but the normal people would not know. They have to buy something or get something installed that is cybersecure. They should not worry about that. Back to, in the Netherlands we have called this next gen. It's not next gen grid operations, it's next gen smart metering. So this was the original slide when we started discussing this. And the next gen is about what are we now going to put in the houses as the next generation smart metering. So Netherlands has, was it 98%, 99 smart meters already? And now we're going to replace with a more smart system. The meter by itself will not be smart. It just has to be a certified meter. But the way we use it has to become smarter. Okay, very quickly, digitalization, digital transformation, GridOps machine, building that. So that is the control system on the top. You saw a picture before. We're collecting data from everywhere in the grid, including from the home management systems and the smart meters. We structure the data. You can call the data a digital twin if you want to. But the grid operations, the market, the asset manager, all the different users look at the same basis of this data. That's why it needs to be structured. It's about real-time data exchange and structured and standardized data. Oh yeah, and something about security, cybersecurity. So in that way, we're building the energy management system of the future. It starts from the bottom, but this is the roadmap also that, for instance, TenneT, the transmission system operator in the Netherlands, is using. It looks very spacey, the new control system or room of the future. The bottom one is the control system of control room of future at the University of Delft. I'm not sure if we will dare to have the system run the grid automatically in all aspects, or whether they're co-pilot telling our operators how to do. But there's more and more work to be done. It's more real time. And we will need all the intelligence, whether it's artificial or not, to support us. So coming then to the steps. I've called it energy data use and data sharing. And now sharing is in between parentheses, and it's a platform, yes. So what is the objective to do it? You need to have a roadmap how to achieve it then. Which stakeholders, which collaboration? If you don't have the stakeholders lined up and everybody buys in and has a commitment to engage, then it's not going to work. How beautiful your platform is, it's not going to work if you cannot achieve the collaboration. So it starts actually with processes. Which process are we now going to use? How are we going to operate it? How are we going to organize? Not over the silos, because everybody's always saying they're silos. But we have to break that and organize it, and then we can use that platform. Which data for what? Define what it means sharing. So actually, it is more like we're collecting data from all these sectors that you have shown into a platform to host data for the different users. So I'm not sure what, and so that's why I was preparing this. I said maybe we should call it data hosting instead of data sharing. Well, I leave you with that.
Very much, Bas, for very interesting, structured, and quite challenging thoughts, thrown in the presentation. I'm sure that the colleagues at the Ministry of Energy are already tackling some of the issues that you have raised, including on whether it should be data sharing or data hosting, and how to get the buy-in of the stakeholders to share the data, first of all, and then how to standardize it so that users can have a specific level of performance in the systems there. Klaas, with this I will give the floor to you, and hopefully you'll talk through some of the practicalities of digitalizing at the street, home, grid level and above. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Pien. Thank you, Vice Minister, and thank you, Alexei, for inviting us over again. Yes, I didn't have any slides prepared because it would be a lot of repeating of what Bas just told us. My company is actually at the end of the line. So indeed, what Bas has mentioned, one aspect is still missing, and that's doing it. Sharing the data or hosting the data. And I heard a lot of talk already, and I'm really impressed how far you already are and looking at cybersecurity, but also in privacy regulations, because that's one of the biggest issues that we have currently in the Netherlands. So also, Gianluca, I very like your examples of sandboxing and regulation sandboxing. Actually, at this point in time in Europe, we have a lot of regulation already. And the biggest issue is how to implement all these regulations, like GDPR, Data Act, AI Act, or whatever. All these things come together, and at the end, there's the household, like Bas told, Bas's house, but we have 8 million of these connections. So all these households needs to be secured in the privacy, but also in the security. And there you can see there is a lot going on in data, because data is improving quite a lot. The amounts of data is highly improving is increased a lot over the last years. And you need to have this data secured for every use on every level. So the TSO wants to have good prediction on what is happening in the grid, but the end user wants to have a good bill. And like an example of Bas, when he is charging an electric vehicle, he just wants to pay for the electricity that he has used, not for anything else. And we're also facing a lot of other issues in the Netherlands at this moment, and Bas mentioned it briefly, is congestion management. We have a lot of congestion in our grid because the industry is growing so rapidly that we cannot cope with that in our investment in the grid. So we have a lot of congestions in our grid appearing, and also for that we need data. We need data to fight this congestion and to make sure that we keep our grid up, we keep up the frequency, but also at the end that we keep our customers connected to the grid and keep the electricity flowing. So my company is really on indeed hosting or sharing the data. We still call it sharing the data, because we have chosen for a model where we have left the data into the sources in a decentralized way. So we're not building one platform with all the data in it, like they've chosen in the Nordics, for example. So when you look at Finland, you look at Denmark or Norway, they've chosen for a data hub to collect a lot of data in one data hub to share it with all the parties that need that data. But we have chosen in a model for decentralized data. So the DSO is collecting data, the TSO is collecting data, but also the other parties in the grid are collecting the data. And my company is there to make sure that this data is shared based on the right conditions. So, of course, the TSO needs data for keeping up the frequency, keeping up the balance. And as a customer, well, you cannot impact on that. But also, your other companies, the financial companies need that data. EV charge companies need also that data. And the customer can give access to his data via our platform. So indeed, we also have a platform, but the platform is not including the data. It's just an exchange platform to make sure that the customer can give access to the data whoever he wants to have access to. And then you can use that data, of course, for commercial aspects, but also for other aspects. So that's quite an important thing. And then, of course, we have to use all this regulation to make sure that the data is shared with the right persons in the right conditions and also under the right privacy regulation and also on security regulation. Issues that we have at this moment in Europe, because at the end you can have these sandboxes, you can have all these pilot projects, but at the end there is a consumer who just wants to have a connection and a right bill. So that's, I hopefully can give some insights in the roundtable discussions that we have to make sure that you can see how exactly we are doing this. We have some aggregators who do some on household level. We have a lot of aggregators who are now working in this congestion area to make sure that this congestion is handled in the right way. And of course, also what you mentioned, Gianluca, is peer-to-peer delivery. How to calculate and to settle the peer-to-peer regulation, because that's also something that we haven't included in our regulations yet. So that's also something which is new for us. And we have to set up regulations for it, set up rules for it, to make sure that the customers is served in the right way at the end. So we have a lot of challenges at this moment to make sure that we do it in a safe and secure way. And I'm really impressed how far you are already with this. We are not that far, I can say. So we are really rolling out this new next-gen smart meters. At least we will try to do it. We are talking about it for years now. But at the end, we should roll out the smart meters because they give also new access to new data. And then, of course, we have the new technologies like AI and blockchain. And in the Netherlands, we don't use them that much. Pilot projects also with blockchain. When I was working at the TSO level, we tried also, but so far it's not really working on our level at this moment. So we also need a lot of pilot projects on that to make sure that we can really use the blockchain. We have to really find out where it's useful and where it's not useful. That also goes for AI. When you look at the tenant perspective, indeed, the TSO AI, you need new technologies because we have a quite volatile grid these days with all these renewables coming up. Wind, solar, electric vehicles. So also we need to really have more, there's more data available for the control room. And you need to really make sure that this is handled in a correct way. So you need AI. But you also need to set regulations for AI. How far can they go? How far can they use personal data? Well, we haven't found the answer yet. So happy to discuss that over the next few days. To see the insights that we have, and also looking forward to meet you.
Thank you very much, Klaas. I think with this we have already concluded the presentation segment of it, and I know that we have budgeted some time for the question and answers, but Alexei is actually letting me know that the deputy, I think she is the chairman of the digitalization in the parliament, right? Shlaeva, the member of the Mejlis and the parliament of the Kazakhstan on the topic of digital grid. Alexei, let me know if you're ready already to connect her. Okay, let me know when you're ready, but meanwhile, we will be happy to take questions from your side for now. And I wanted to also let you know that at the end of today, we also budgeted some time for question and answers after you hear also presentations from the Kazakh counterparts. So whatever we're unable to answer in this time slot, we will try to answer closer to the end of the day. So yes, the floor is yours. Maybe we can give the mic to, could you also introduce yourself?
Насыров Рустам, компания Tingis Chevroil, Atырау. I'll ask in English, if you don't mind. Probably more towards Gianluca. So the several plans that you mentioned, the best examples from all over the world. So implementing these systems, and some of them involve a lot of users, and they involve AI and other technologies. So there are extra challenges in terms of cybersecurity. And in particular, if you go ahead with using AI, there is a gap that if whoever gets access to this system and can tweak the inputs and the black box and tweak the outputs. So how do you recommend to proactively approach cybersecurity aspect of those solutions to make them extra secure so that having smarter systems doesn't make them more risky? Thank you.
Yes, if you don't mind.
Well, this is a very, very difficult question. I mean, very challenging. Clearly, this applies in general, not just to energy sector, but clearly with all the new technologies coming up, there's the risk of cyber attacks and cyber threats. It's growing exponentially, not to mention all the disinformation part. But I mean, coming specifically to the energy issues, clearly this is probably one of the most important issues to be addressed, especially because there are all the critical infrastructure that need to be also, let's say, covered. I mean, let's say in the EU in particular. That's why I mentioned the Cyber Resilience Act, that is part of a package of reforms that are being now discussed and implemented. This will be on top of the NIS 2 directive. There is already the Network Information Security Directive that unfortunately has been only implemented in 2 countries at the moment, Belgium and Italy in Europe. So we are also lagging a bit behind. But this will actually increase, I don't know if it's a good news for class, but it will increase quite a lot the needs of reporting and anticipating risks. And that's why there is a lot of ex-ante assessment that need to be done. I mean, this is in general for all issues related to information security. And then I guess for energy related, some areas where AI is used are considered high risk. So I'm pretty sure that the part of the energy distribution system is also probably considered high risk. So in that part, it is required to have a much more compliance, and clearly the regulation will have to go much more in depth. Now, okay, Kazakhstan is not part of the EU, so you can say, oh, we don't need to comply, but there is, of course, an interest also in being, let's say, interoperable also in terms of the governance systems, because, of course, the distribution and consumption, I mean, especially distribution in this case, could, I mean, will also affect the relation with the EU. So I think that's also an interest to look at that. And then there is the standardization part. I mean, there are different committees at the moment that are working on different standardization, let's say, systems for AI. So I think that's also an area that needs to be addressed. At the global level, there is discussion both bilateral, for instance, the EU and the US under the Trade and Technology Council have a specific working group on cybersecurity and AI, and standards are being discussed also at different, let's say, multilateral levels. So I think that's an area that need to be, let's say, observed very, very closely, because this will affect the future developments. So, I mean, there's no yet an answer for this, but clearly an area to be looked at. And also, I mean, we can discuss maybe later, but I've been working for the European Cybersecurity Agency, specifically looking at the implications of artificial intelligence cybersecurity. I can point you some of the reports that we have been doing, because there is a clear example of, double edge. You can use AI to anticipate possible cyber attacks, but also AI is widely used to create cyber attacks. So what you need to do there, I think it was mentioned by the deputy of the Cybersecurity Agency, you need to train people. And not only on the technical aspects, but you need to look at the entire processes, because at the end of the day, and there are many examples also in the energy sector, like the one famous in the US, where actually at the end of the day, the problem came from someone that put his password somewhere. So the human in the loop is the weakest part of any cybersecurity system. So training and on advanced digital skills, but on the processes to secure the system is what is most important. And we can discuss about this as now, for instance, the EU is investing quite a lot on advanced digital skills. I think we have 570 million euros on training on this out of the Digital Europe program. And cybersecurity is one of the issues. And there is, just to conclude, also recently established a cybersecurity competence center that is actually hosted in Bucharest, that is creating a network of all cybersecurity agencies in Europe to ensure that we have, a coordinated approach.
Thank you very much for the answer. Klaas, you would like to add?
Yeah. Maybe I can add just one thing, because what we should not forget is the data quality, because that's also an important thing. What you put into these systems, you will get out, and that's also what we've discovered also in the energy industry. That the data quality can be very poor sometimes, and that gives also with AI, it gives a very bad results. So that is also something we should be aware of, to be sure that we improve this data quality, because there's more and more data coming up. And also, indeed, Gianluca, I'm not looking forward to that, but also more reporting on that. That's really an issue, and then you should really report the right data. We already have a lot of, at least in Europe, a lot of reporting issues at this moment, and they also cover a lot of data quality issues.
Frankly, it's not only about the data. No, it's not working, I think. Anyway, so it's not only the issue of sharing the data, but also the quality of data, and then how you share it, and then probably also standardization. And as Gianluca mentioned, the security at every step is becoming probably the more important thing, and then security of the processes and understanding the process is probably more important than just devising the protocols as such. And I think that was one of the reasons where both the Vice Minister mentioned about it and Alexei in his presentation, that the automation of the processes and digitalization and automation of a lot of processes and industry is probably paramount for their implementation of their national vision as well. I was wondering whether there are any other questions that you'd like the experts to take now before we switch to our speaker online. Yes, one question here. Yeah. Could you introduce yourself as well?
Yes. My name is Asel, representing the North Caspian Operating Company of the Kashagan field. My question to class, probably, I think. You have touched about the stakeholders management in general across the whole transformation on the digital, and maybe you can give some example, if any. You have defined some link between the digitalization and ESG principle strengths. Currently, this trend is also covering some aspects of the people transforming to the environmental, social, and government areas through some digitalization mindset. So any experience on that, or maybe you have already defined this in the countries outside of the Kazakhstan?
It's quite difficult to involve all the stakeholders, because basically we also come from a system like Bas just mentioned, where we have centralized production and consumers just using the production of coal-fired power plants, gas-fired power plants. Now we're getting more and more, like Gianluca mentioned, prosumers, so the customer is getting more and more involved. So we have a lot of new stakeholders coming up. So that means that we have started, I guess about 4 years ago, a discussion also with help of the ministry, but also from the regulator, with new stakeholders involved who really serve these customers, because a lot of new customers are also really involved in the environment, and to make sure that they are also, their voice is heard. And that's one of the big issues that we currently have at this moment, to involve all these customers and stakeholders also in, well, making the right deals on sharing data, protecting their goals in data as well. So this is a big challenge, but it started with just inviting more and more stakeholders at the table. So we stopped with what we had, and that was currently, that was more or less with all the basic parties involved in the energy sector, in the old industry, I must say. And we started again and involving more and more stakeholders. And what we see now is that it's improving. But we have to be aware of keeping those new stakeholders invited to our new regulation and all that kind of things, and our stakeholder meetings. It's really hard to get them involved and to get the right people on board. So it's also a challenge for us at this moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Some time ago, I think I was speaking to one of the American businessmen, and he mentioned one thing: no matter what business you're in people's business. That's the hardest to get, so everywhere. I was wondering, Alexei, are you ready to, if you don't mind, we'll hold the questions, Q&A session at the end of the working day today. So if you have questions that you would like to answer, ask and get answered by the experts, please write them down or hold them for the session at the end of the day. And with this one, I would like to invite the next speaker for the panel to discuss the digital code of Kazakhstan, Ms. Ekaterina Smyshlyeva, member of the Mejlis of the Parliament of Kazakhstan. Alexei, technical. Yes, I think, yes. I think we can sit back and then we watch it as well. So thank you very much. The floor is yours, Ms. Smyshlyeva.
Приветствую участников конференции. Надеюсь, меня слышно. Уважаемые коллеги, сегодня у вас с утра идет очень профессиональная площадка. Профессиональные площадки – это всегда место выработки правильных решений. Поэтому мы с Алексеем обсуждали, что, возможно, я не все сегодня слышала и буду немножко не в формате, может быть, только что завершившейся дискуссии, но Алексей попросил меня немножко рассказать о цифровом кодексе, над которым мы на сегодняшний день работаем как законодатели, поэтому я остановлюсь на своем вопросе. Ну, если будут какие-то смежные вопросы, возможно, после выступления мы сможем их более детально обсудить уже в контексте именно вашей конференции. Уважаемые коллеги, вообще как бы дискуссия, можно сразу, в принципе, поставить второй слайд. Дискуссия о том, каким образом нужно регулировать цифровую среду, отношения в цифровой среде, она на сегодняшний день одна из самых острых, как в юридических сообществах, так и в сообществах технологических, потому что на самом деле цифровые сущности – это нечто отличающееся от нашей формальной реальности, будем так говорить. И эти вопросы, они на самом деле очень такие актуальные и очень часто на разных площадках их поднимают. Теперь, если говорить о подходах к регулированию, я бы хотела обратить ваше внимание на вот слайд, который, надеюсь, сейчас открыт, второй слайд. Значит, особенности тех цифровых законов, которые сегодня есть в мире. Значит, и, в принципе, в Казахстане. Сегодня эти как бы, критерии и эти характеристики, они, в общем-то, во многом похожи. Во-первых, в цифровые законы, как правило, очень часто вносятся различные изменения. Причем это не всегда происходит по причине низкого качества этих законов, это, как правило, происходит по причине того, что просто за время рождения закона, у него есть жизненный цикл, да, то есть законотворческого процесса в любой стране мира, независимо от юрисдикции, за это время просто или во время вступления закона в силу, или в первый год от вступления закона в силу, или нормы то или иное, просто меняются цифровые сущности, меняется их развитие, происходит скачок, происходит изменение понимания, что это такое, да, и так далее. То есть, значит, и в связи с этим, соответственно, необходимо тут же норму достаточно молодую менять и перенастраивать ее по-новому. Второй момент – это то, что именно обусловленное вот этими особенностями во многих юрисдикциях мира к регулированию цифровых сущностей подходят через правовые эксперименты или пилотные проекты. Мы не исключение. У нас в Казахстане, в нашей юрисдикции, я думаю, сегодня уже это, наверное, звучало, существует глобальная финтех-песочница международная, это Международный финансовый центр Астана. Кроме того, есть различные форматы пилотирования в рамках отдельных законов о госуслугах, значит, о Национальном банке и так далее. А далее есть избыточные, как бы, характеристика законов цифровых в том, что избыточный понятийный аппарат, как бы он наносит такую, или привносит в закон такой немножко учебный характер, то есть когда мы вынуждены описывать подробно каждую цифровую сущность, но не потому, что это юридически нужно, а потому что это нужно еще с точки зрения того, чтобы у всех специалистов, от судей до просто пользователей, обывателей законов, у них было единое понимание, что мы имеем в виду под той или иной цифровой сущностью. Следующий момент – это у нас как раз-таки вот эта разница, которая на сегодня встречается. Это отличие между юридической сущностью и технической сущностью. Но вот, допустим, по обеспеченным активам, да, цифровым, значит, у нас действительно есть такое расхождение, потому что формально-технически цифровой актив может быть обеспеченным, но юридические обеспечения признать страна не может. Поэтому, соответственно, для нас он не обеспечены, но не потому, что это технически соответствует реальности. Значит, что еще характерно для цифровых законов? Это пострегулирование с излишней детализацией. То есть когда всегда технология идет впереди права, она внедряется, находит свое место в общественных отношениях, она начинает создавать какие-то юридические прецеденты, и тут приходит законодатель и говорит, так, ну, наверное, мы будем регулировать. Это всегда больно, это всегда кажется, почему излишняя детализация, потому что мы же описываем, по сути, существующий процесс, то есть и не всегда правильно, но с точки зрения развития нейротехнологий, в принципе, это достаточно неплохо. Значит, ну и понятно, что существует ряд конфликтов новых регуляторных моделей с базовыми подходами в юриспруденции, в классических отраслях права, гражданское, уголовное и так далее. То есть, да, действительно конфликты есть, потому что сущности, они цифровые сущности, их не всегда хотят и могут признавать какими-то новыми объектами или субъектами отношений, поэтому здесь бывают проблемы. Следующий слайд. Значит, вот на следующем слайде вы видите, в принципе, описание идеи и назначения цифрового кодекса. Вот первый слайд характеристик законов, он, в принципе, приводит нас к тому, что как бы, регулирование все-таки цифровой реальности, оно должно быть как-то систематизировано. Вот каким образом я в нескольких следующих слайдах попробую рассказать. Ну, во-первых, что представляет собой сам на сегодня цифровой кодекс Республики Казахстан, который инициирован, началось его сегодня активное его обсуждение. Скоро, в общем-то, мы, наверное, придем к определенным результатам этой дискуссии, начнем рассматривать его уже непосредственно в Мажилисе. Сейчас он проходит экспертизы. Ну, вот я коротко представлю. Что представляет собой сегодня цифровой кодекс Казахстана? Это, прежде всего, балансирующий акт между безопасностью и развитием. Я думаю, что сегодня в свете повестки как раз соорганизаторов этой конференции, Организации Объединенных Наций, я думаю, что этот вопрос тоже на площадках часто звучит на международных, это вот необходимость соблюдения баланса между правами человека и, значит, развитием, технологическим развитием различных обществ, юрисдикций и в целом мира. Этот баланс, к сожалению, у нас не всегда соблюдается, потому что, вот, я всегда говорю, цифровизация стоит на 3 китах. Это информационная безопасность, это технология, и 3-й кит – это у нас инфраструктура. Если мы хоть по одному как бы, направлению начинаем отставать, например, сильно развиваем технологии, но игнорируем информационную безопасность, у нас вопрос защиты прав человека, его данных и в целом безопасности начинает возрастать. Если мы развиваем технологии и даже безопасность, но при этом не развиваем инфраструктуру, то возникает цифровое неравенство. Значит, и таких примеров достаточно много. Значит, поэтому мы в данном случае считаем, что именно цифровой кодекс на уровне базовых, в том числе описания базовых прав человека в цифровой среде, он может и должен быть вот этим балансирующим документом. Следующий момент – это то, что цифровой кодекс устанавливает определенные правила игры. То есть цифровой кодекс рассчитан прежде всего на балансировку отраслевых законов, потому что на сегодняшний день в отраслевом законодательстве каждая отрасль описывает свои цифровые процессы, вносит изменения, но это не всегда допустимо по той простой причине, что нет общего ориентира, разрастается понятийный аппарат. Например, определение платформ у нас уже в законах, наверное, 5 точно дается свое понимание, да, цифровой платформы. И таких достаточно много вариантов творческих, поэтому, на наш взгляд, вот такой установочный акт, это цифровой кодекс, далее развитие будет происходить, исходя из норм, которые указаны именно в нем. Еще один момент – это... Значит, цифровой кодекс затрагивает регулирование новых сущностей, которые еще не успели отрегулировать ни одни законы, в том числе отраслевые, цифровые. Но сущности, которые носят проникающий характер. Проникающие, я имею в виду, что они используются в разных отраслях, значит, одинаково, но при этом они должны регулироваться. Это децентрализованные организации, так называемые DAO, например, мы сделали попытку там регуляторной модели. Это искусственный интеллект, смарт-контракты, варианты автоматизированных решений, цифровые активы, цифровые архивы. То есть это все сущности, которые носят проникающий характер, но регулируются цифровым законодательством. Ну и понятно, что цифровой кодекс – это, в общем-то, сборник базовых целей, принципов системы управления цифровым развитием. То есть здесь границы участия государства, границы регулятора и границы участия рынка. и элементы саморегулирования, и описание институтов, которые сегодня работают в этой сфере, ну и, конечно, базовые границы, куда же мы все-таки готовы дойти в цифровом развитии, значит, как бы не нарушая тех или иных прав человека. Значит, цифровой кодекс у нас не ставит на утрату действующих законов. На первом этапе, вообще у нас двухэтапное принятие ожидается, то есть первый этап это и первая часть кодекса будет принята как общая часть в большей степени, вторая часть будет разрабатываться уже как особенная, ну, то есть особенности нашей законодательной системы. Значит, нет в кодексе детального регулирования и нет отраслевого регулирования вообще. Значит, что касается объектно-субъектной части, то среди объектов, значит, мы рассматриваем регулирование цифровых отношений в цифровой среде. Всегда они связаны, эти отношения связаны, цифровая среда связана с данными и технологиями, а в качестве субъектов рассматриваем цифровые записи, цифровые ресурсы, цифровые системы платформы и цифровую инфраструктуру. Следующий слайд. На следующем слайде, если вы обратите внимание, как раз тот тезис о проникающей цифровизации и цифровой трансформации отраслей, он несколько раскрывается, но поскольку у нас время ограничено, я не буду, наверное, останавливаться на нем. Вы видите, единственное, приведу несколько кейсов, которыми увлекаются отрасли без какого-то общего понимания, да, процессов. Я приведу один пример автоматизированного решения в отношении человека. Значит, на сегодняшний день очень много автоматизированных систем, которые принимают решения на основании объективных данных, наблюдений и так далее. В том числе они связаны с видеомониторингом, в том числе они связаны с различным родом функционированием информационных систем, принятие решений с помощью каких-то мат-моделей, скоринговых моделей и так далее. Вместе с тем, как бы многие законодатели пишут, что в случае принятия автоматизированных решений оно не подлежит пересмотру. На самом деле это грубейшее нарушение прав человека, потому что в любом случае человек должен иметь право на пересмотр этих решений с участием человека. Это право базовое мы в кодексе прописываем. Таким образом, у нас ни в одном отраслевом законодательстве не сможет появиться неоспоримость автоматизированного решения. То есть, и на самом деле таких вариантов и таких вопросов очень много. Следующий слайд. Значит, следующий слайд, как бы это то, что касается вопросов безопасности. Значит, у нас на сегодняшний день вопрос безопасности в кодексе, безусловно, он отражен, кибербезопасности. У нас есть отражена система аудитов, у нас отражены непосредственно институты, обеспечивающие эту безопасность. У нас вот это объектно-субъектное разделение четкое, понятное по, значит, в частности, допустим, я пример приведу, скажем, по процедуре использования биометрических данных, она, допустим, указана, то есть, например, обязательное использование биометрии может быть установлено только на уровне законодательных актов. Значит, есть определенные ограничения в части использования, есть только там 2 вида биометрической информации, которые для аутентификации могут использоваться. Идентификацию мы вообще в принципе не берем в вопросах цифровых отношений, потому что она по факту не нужна. Это вот нюансы, связанные с этим. Потом есть разделение на идентификаторы, то есть подход через идентификаторы к определению персональных данных, соответственно, их защите. То есть эти все базовые моменты мы заложили. На уровне законов останется детальные вещи, как бы, но база уже она создана на уровне кодекса. А что касается минусов, как бы, законов в сфере и норм в сфере защиты данных и информационной безопасности в целом, то на самом деле у нас есть одна, наверное, общая, как бы, во всем мире проблема. Это в том, что мы можем написать сколь угодно сильный законодательный акт. Ну, мировым примером является GDPR, конечно, по исполнению, по продуманности, защите персональных данных. Значит, рисковато с точки зрения развития технологий, но мы многие вещи, кстати говоря, переняли в своем законодательстве по защите персональных данных именно оттуда. Но здесь есть нюансы. Какие бы крутые нормы мы ни закладывали, у нас, к сожалению, не расширяется административная база, то есть база регулятора, который бы эти нормы отслеживал или мониторил. Это очень неправильно, потому что тогда у нас мы идем медленно и верно идем к правовому нигилизму. То есть когда есть нормы, они не работают, все это видят и начинают как бы нарушать. Да? Растет число объектов контроля, растет число объектов защиты. К сожалению, административные аппараты безгранично расти не могут. Поэтому мы сегодня стараемся балансировать. Многие вещи нужно... Стараемся развивать в системе комплайенса, в системе рекомендаций, автоматизируем некоторые решения. Сейчас активно искусственный интеллект сюда, в общем-то, заводится в качестве каких-то частных решений. Но тем не менее, то есть мы понимаем, что с вот этой административной частью нужно что-то делать. И вторая проблема – это адекватность наказания за нарушение в сфере утечки персональных данных, потому что адекватность наказания влияет на как бы мотивацию тех или иных операторов персональных данных тратить средства на обеспечение их защиты. Если штрафы и наказания за утечки, они минимальны, соответственно, им проще заплатить штраф. Если наказание соразмерно с затратами на обеспечение ИБ, соответственно, и обеспечением занимаются охотнее. Поэтому мы сейчас над этим работаем, тяжело это идет, но я думаю, что мы обязательно в этом плане добьемся определенных результатов, да, тем более, что они промежуточные как бы уже есть. Есть у нас решения, связанные как бы с нетрадиционным подходом. Значит, ну, подготовка к самообороне – это, прежде всего, цифровая гигиена наших граждан, мы поэтому отдельно работаем, здесь законы не нужны. Развитие частных институтов в сфере защиты данных. У нас на сегодня работает достаточно сформированный и успешный рынок АЦИБов, центров информационной безопасности, именно частных. И по нестандартным решениям, это мы в прошлом году легализовали и дали правовой статус платформе Bug Bounty, то есть фактически мы завели в законное поле так называемых белых хакеров, то есть которые на сегодняшний день нам помогают обеспечивать безопасность информационных систем, в том числе государственных. Следующий слайд. Еще одна особенность как бы, цифрового кодекса, как я уже говорила, это регулирование новых сущностей. Но здесь есть определенные сложности, поэтому, конечно, вот самая обсуждаемая часть кодекса – это, наверное, вот эти подходы, и в том числе и по объему этих подходов, потому что многие говорят, что нужно внести в кодекс еще дополнительный искусственный интеллект, метавселенные и прочие сущности. Мы пока в этом плане ограничились, потому что на самом деле на международном уровне документов мягкого права практически нет. Если есть, они носят декларативный характер, в большей степени даже не рекомендательный. Значит, нет классических модельных законов, которые можно было бы посмотреть, сверить часы. Нет эталонного регулирования со стажем правоприменения, к сожалению, потому что все, что сегодня принято в мире, у него период правоприменения, он недостаточный для хорошей аналитики. Значит, мы всегда опасаемся, что риск серьезного регуляторного воздействия остановит просто развитие технологий, мы окажемся как бы в хвосте, будем так говорить, перемен, поэтому тоже этого не хочется, поэтому достаточно осторожны. И, значит, есть еще также в развитии новейших технологий, у юрисдикции есть различные статусы. Какие-то юрисдикции у нас, значит, обладают статусом пользователя, какие-то статусом разработчика. Соответственно, регулирование строится тоже из этих позиций, оно будет отличаться. Поэтому тоже здесь, ну, как бы используем международный опыт, осложнено этим возможность. Мы видим, как растет сегодня количество цифровых нигилистов, то есть тех, кто принципиально там выходит из аккаунтов, которые принципиально они присутствуют там, ограничивают, вернее, использование гаджетов и так далее. Я полагаю, что с развитием технологических и этот конфликт неизбежен. Мы уже сегодня его видим, например, когда у нас дается согласие на использование персональных данных, а если оно не дается, то услуга может остаться недоступной. А алгоритм, что человек может не согласиться, к сожалению, не всегда проработан. Поэтому такие перегибы есть, они есть везде, поэтому я думаю, что такие принципы, они, может быть, где-то будут несколько тормозить в каких-то вопросах развития, но скорее не тормозить, а скорее мы всегда будем иметь в виду второй вариант, это будет гарантировать. Вот. Коллеги, я не буду больше занимать время, я понимаю, что у вас очень плотная конференция, сейчас уже наступает время обеда. Значит, я единственное хочу сказать, что наш цифровой кодекс, следующий слайд включите, он доступен, его как над открытым кодом программного обеспечения, значит, совместная. Мы следим за изменениями и ветками комментирования и предложений в данный проект, поэтому будем рады, а он размещен на 3 языках, поэтому мы рады будем, если кто-то сможет дать предложение вот по данному вопросу. Большое спасибо за внимание.